Are people aware during seizures? Probably not, but she did know that her last memory was spending time with her child. There's nothing you could have done, and you were there for her till the very end. An honest thank you, Dick but please, for such a heartwarming thought. r/rimjob_Steve. My spouse has night seizures, tonic-clonic or grand mal, and they are completely unaware during and after a seizure, sometimes for a few hours. Should I have stayed up longer? Even if there was a pattern with your mom having seizures, you can't stay awake all the time. It sounds like there really was nothing you could have done. I'm so sorry for your loss. I've had a grand mal seizure. I was in class and began to feel very anxious and then had this feeling like something bad was coming for me. Kind of like these nightmares I used to have as a little kid where Voldemort or some other monster thing was coming for me and I knew I couldn't get away. And I tried to shrug it off and got up to sharpen my pencil. And then I am sleepy and I felt like I fell asleep. Then according to my teacher that's when I fell to the floor and started flopping around and foaming at the mouth. I was so tired but so comfy. Then suddenly I was laying across the room. They moved me while I was unconscious and felt my body moving like I was doing crunches and wanted to throw up, which was confusing. And seeing a guy in a blue uniform. This lasted about 5 seconds, then falling back asleep. It didn't hurt, it felt just like going to sleep peacefully. When I woke up I felt normal, just irritated at not knowing why I was in an ambulance. And my first words after waking up were, what the F? Where am I? Who the F are you? And the paramedics asked me questions and I couldn't remember where I went to school or where I lived, although the memories came back after about 20 minutes all at once. Then it took me a few minutes to figure out how to move my legs once I got to the hospital. Not painful, just had to remember how to do it. And I felt a bit tired the rest of the day, and my parents bought me cheesecake because they felt bad. The paramedics said it's very weird for someone to wake up and feel a seizure, so I'm guessing most people just feel like they're going to sleep. My best friend is epileptic. When he seizes he is confused and groggy for minutes to hours afterward, leaving gaps in his memory that begin a couple minutes before it starts. During a seizure pretty much your entire brain is firing from nowhere to nowhere. It's possible she may have felt it starting, but during, she may as well have been asleep. Oh fuck good. I used to have seizures, both while awake and when sleeping, at all times. What happened was I would see a very bright light, try to cry out for help, but couldn't and just fall out of consciousness. I once heard faint sounds of my sisters screaming, but I would always wake up to a nurse giving me an injection or something. If Op's mom was asleep when the seizure began, she probably remained unconscious throughout, because she was not aware. It was hopefully a painless way to go. I'm sorry for your loss, Opus. I'm personally aware when seizures begin, but I've heard from people who seize in their sleep that they have zero recollection at all. I hope that's a comfort to you. Honestly, hearing sorry for your loss after all these years. People cared when I was 14, but it's been 10 years and I've never cried or addressed it, so this is a huge comfort. Oh you poor thing. My dad died when I was 13. And yeah, people don't understand why we still grieve after so long, but your experience sounds deeply traumatic. I can't imagine. I hope there's some way to talk to a counselor or therapist, because it sounds like you need to talk about it. It wasn't your fault. It really wasn't. I've had seizures. Yeah, completely unconscious when they happen. When I woke up after I wouldn't have any memory of it either. I had some, I think 4 seizures. I do not have epilepsy but it was epilepsy seizures. Short answer, I wasn't aware during the seizures. The first one, the scary one, came out of sudden. I was playing CS16 and then I was laying on the floor at the another room. My parents was asking me if I know who am I, who are them. I was so tired and everything was like a dream. Then the ambulance came and they home me medicine to prevent another seizure. The second one came unexpectedly, but I was feeling it coming a few seconds and I remember almost everything before and shortly after. The third one was home during the sleep. I remember wake up totally tired. The drugs. The fourth one was interesting. It was during a camp. I had a hard day. I was staff, not participant, and I slept indoors. I was sleeping in hammock every night otherwise. I woke up and everybody was staring at me. I had no idea why. They told me I had the seizure. I didn't even notice. So I wasn't aware during my seizures. Do you know what caused your epileptic seizures if not epilepsy? Just curious. I have epilepsy with no known cause, but fairly regular seizures. They tell me it is something on the genetic level in the brain, but no idea what exactly. Me nor my doctor don't know. I had no reaction to the tests and EEG is alright. Have you had a seizure while hooked up to an EEG? That makes all the difference I guess. I had to spend 3 weeks in the hospital for one to finally show up. I'm no doctor obviously, but I believe that if you have more than one unprovoked seizure in a lifetime, it means you are seizure prone. Epileptic doesn't mean constant seizures your whole life, as it can be very cyclical. I didn't start having regular tonic-clonic seizures until age 32. I have had several, no memory at all, or the few minutes post-ictal afterwards. It depends on the type of seizure. To be honest, some affected people will lose time, others will remember everything, but not be able to consciously do anything during the seizure. I had a temporal lobe seizure, unknown cause and a one-off event. I was not aware during it at SLL. As someone who has had multiple seizures, I can assure you she was not aware of the time. Nope. My mom has seizures, and she has explained to me that her mind just goes blank, and she doesn't remember anything. My mother-in-law passed away from a brain hemorrhage. It was just 2 weeks before the birth of her second grandchild. To this day I feel awful about it. There is literally nothing we could have done. She was rushed to the hospital. Doctors scrambled everywhere. In the end, the doctor said there was nothing anyone could have done. Don't beat yourself up over it. Staying up longer would have not helped. One thing I can tell you however is this. The time I spend with my kids, just watching TV or simply sitting next to them while they are playing with their Legos is bliss to me. Their presence is one of the purest feelings of love I feel, and this for sure was the same for your mother. You are her creation. Even if someone is not their biological child, raising someone is one's creation. Your mother passed, knowing that she has brought something into this world she was proud of. And she was able to spend the last moments of her life with that person. No. Some loss of recent memory also occurs. My son had a seizure about a month ago. Turned out it was caused by an interaction of Prozac and alcohol he drank 24 hours previous. Fairly common for first time seizures as it turns out. Something about brain activity ramping up. Recovering from the alcohol. Badly interacting the Prozac already in his system. He'd had a bad headache all day leading up to it. After convulsing he tried to walk down the hall. It was clear he was not conscious. I was talking calmly to him. Clear he couldn't hear me. Could tell he was blank. Scariest moments of my life. Thank God I was sitting nearby. He had no idea he'd had a seizure. There is an inherent danger with 3 type meds given long term. With some people. Seriously. Please take this info to heart. Never want to go through that again. I don't have seizures, and I'm not a medical expert, but as I recall, it's typical for people who have intense seizures to wake up not remembering that span of time. In terms of memory it just seems blank. We can take this as evidence that people are not consciously aware during seizures. However, it is also possible that they are aware, but just not forming memories. I don't think we know enough about the phenomenon to rule this out. My brother has seizures in his sleep, and he doesn't recollect a thing. He only notices it in hindsight because he bites his tongue and wakes up from a seemingly normal night, but with a wound he didn't have the night before. Sorry for your loss. Opus. As a parent myself, I don't think spending time with my child is mundane. It's lovely. I'm so sorry for your loss. I have a few different kinds of seizures, with the more mild ones not affecting my awareness completely. That being said, I do experience tonic-clonic seizures, where I lose awareness completely. Even my memory of the moments leading up to the tonic-clonic seizure are pretty much gone, along with a bit of time coming to. As far as I can recall, I have absolutely no awareness during the seizures itself. People who witness it happen are sometimes surprised I have no awareness, because I'll be shaking a lot, and maybe even making noise. To the witness, it really does appear as though I'm in distress, and maybe even in a lot of pain. I always try to tell people who've seen it happen to me that it is 100% scarier for them to witness it than for me to experience it. The only scary part for me is the confusion when I wake up and I'm having trouble remembering basic things. I hope that helps even in just some small way. I can only imagine how hard this must be for you. You're very strong for sharing and asking about it, and I hope the answers bring you some peace. For me the answer is yes. Whenever I enter an epileptic seizure and pass out, I'm unable to see or communicate with anyone, but my hearing is fine. I can hear them talking. I have no memories from my seizures, usually just remember faintly an aura, then a complete blackout. Unfortunately, a friend of mine told how they had some where they were aware. They too passed, since due to a seizure. I wish you the best. In your mother's case, almost certainly not. I'm guessing you're talking about a generalized tonic-clonic seizure, unresponsive on the ground, with weird muscle movements. People don't retain awareness during those sorts of seizures. Your mother was not aware of what happened. She was not scared. She was not sad. She was not worried. She just wasn't there. Source: I have temporal lobe epilepsy. Close bracket. When my younger sis had childhood epilepsy, she could feel them coming. She would lock up and pass out on her feet and be aware again, almost before she hit the ground. She was always super panicked and emotional afterward. She described it as a gap in her memory/consciousness. Of course, brain chemistry being what it is, and the wide range of things that can go wrong. I wouldn't say this necessarily generalizes to everyone. I have had several focal seizures, meaning I'm conscious and aware of what's going on. I can move and talk through them. I have had one while I'm asleep, and it woke me up. I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying this to show that, if your mom was conscious, she probably would have woken up and been able to wake you up for help, or move to a different position, based on what I was told. Grand mal cause unconsciousness. Yes. Petit mal seizures do not look typical of what we know as a seizure. My son had seizures that his med drive said were panic attacks. No convulsing. We never knew these episodes, as we called them, were seizures, until he had a grand mal and went to the ER. Awareness is key. Once again, please take this seriously. If you take threes for depression and drink occasionally, these seizures did start with some scary train of thought or feeling that something was coming for him, so to the ER's credit, they began panic. But they were actually seizures. What? I didn't have petit mal seizures. No disrespect intended. From what little I know, it's different for everyone. Just meant to say that some seizures don't look like what we think a seizure looks like. I realize focal is not the same. Just would have been nice to know that he was having seizures, not panic attacks. He was conscious also. Sorry if I overspoke. Was more a comment on the whole thread. Thought his experience might help someone. No, I have epilepsy. I'm always unconscious during seizures, even if it does not look like it. No, a tonic-clonic seizure is when the person passes out with different levels of consciousness. They will gain control when the seizure is over. Very sorry to hear about your mother. I had childhood epilepsy and experienced numerous types of seizures, from mild absences to violent tonic-clonic seizures, a few times lasting several minutes. I never had any idea whatsoever that anything was happening until I came to and saw horrified faces around me. I'm not a doctor, but it's my understanding that that's the norm for seizures. My brother suffers with seizures. If he has them while he was awake, he remembers feeling something happening, but not fully aware. Then after he wakes up from it, he feels groggy and irritated for the rest of the day. When he has them in the night, he doesn't feel anything at all. He just feels off when he wakes up. As someone who used to suffer from grand mal seizures for a number of years, not only are you not aware during the seizure, you also aren't aware for some time after it's over. The only things I remember is the aura prior and waking up later, usually with a bloody tongue and dislocated shoulder. I've had numerous seizures myself and witnessed a great many more, and in every case the last memory was from a few moments before the seizure happened, so I expect she went from a perfectly enjoyable time with you by her side to crossing into death without any panic or pain. Had she woken up, she'd quite possibly have told you her last memory beforehand was about the A-team. Obviously can't promise you this is always the case, but it seems reasonable to assume she passed peacefully. When I was younger, I used to have seizures sometimes, and it only occurred 2 to 3 times. But I only remember this one specific time. I woke up in the middle of the night and went to ask my mom to fix my blankets. I was relatively young at that time, 7 to 8 years old. So, she came over and she fixed my bed sheet, and then I was about to go into my bed, and then all of a sudden, my head falling backwards towards the floor, and I had no control over my body, and all I could see was the ceiling and my mom saving me from falling. Then I woke up, sitting on the couch with my family surrounding me, and my father was on the phone with a 911 operator while my mother explains to me what happened. It's like when you fall asleep, you don't remember the exact moment while you're asleep, but you wake up and you can feel that time has passed once you're conscious. During that time I don't remember what I thought, but it was something like what's happened, then I went unconscious. It was only about less than a second that I could see what was happening, and when I was able to think, I wasn't able to see, hear, or feel what was going on during the actual seizure. Though, this was just my experience, but people might have different experiences when having a seizure. No, I've had seizures before, and both times I blacked out and woke up in the back of an ambulance like I was just asleep. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.